For the position, we need to allow the user to select from a menu of different options. As you can see here, the drop-down menu has 4 options that the user can select from: accountant, receptionist, administrator and the supervisor. Let's start with entering our input label. This is in the third row first column, and in the third row second column. We can create our select field, and to do that we'll be using the select tag. I just do a bit of formatting. We need to give our select as a name just like we did for the input field. This attribute is important. We call it position. Now we can create our select menu option. Each option should be contained within the option tag. So let's go ahead and create a 4 option just the test for now. Just copy and paste that 3 more times. Now with their option tags created. Let's enter the option that the user will see in the drop down menu. The option tag also requires a value attribute. This attribute identifies the value that will be attached to each option. Let's say for example that the user input will be stored into the database that only allows 2 characters to identify which option the user selected. In this case, the user will see the option heading in full: accountant, receptionist, administrator and the supervisor. But the value that gets passed onto the screen will only be the first 2 letters of each option. So set the value attributes, we just type in the value equal, and because the database can only store 2 characters, we use the first 2 characters of each option, and that completes the first select menu. We will create the second one in the same way. So here are our next table row. Insert the field label, it is which is the experience level, and we will copy the select menu and paste it into this column. We will call this experience and we will just change the option. And it looks like we don't need the fourth option, so it will just go ahead and delete that. We will also change the value that got submitted to our script entry level and very experienced. Let's go ahead and save our file and preview it in a web browser. So that's what we have so far. That is the first selected you created, and here is the second. Next, we need to allow the user to indicate the job type they are searching for, whether it's full-time, part-time, contract or combination of each. To do this, we'll be using checkboxes. To create a checkbox, let's go ahead and type the following code. Again, we will start by entering our label. The checkbox is an input, but for type we have to specify checkbox. We need to give this input a name just like all other inputs we have worked with, and we call it FT short for full time. We will close the input tag and we will just quit full time. A text next to the checkbox so the user know which option they are selecting, and that's all there is it. We just need 2 more of these because we have the 3 checkboxes, so I will just copy that entire block of code and rename this tripty. Change the label to a part-time, and one more, this is quiet for contract, so that is for job type. Next we'll do the employment status. And the employment status, the input are different than the job type in that they are radio button. The key difference between the checkboxes and radio button is that checkboxes allow you to check off multiple options with the radio button. We only want the user to be able to select one option. So let's go ahead and enter our label, which is employment status. And then inside of our column we will create an input this time. This type will specify radio. The name we will call is the status short for employment status, and the value. This is the value that will be submitted to our script, and then we will close the input and we will just put the text employed next to our radio button. So once again the user does know which option they are selecting. So copy this block of code and you need to create 2 options, unemployed and student. You will notice that for checkboxes we gave each checkbox a unique name. For radio button we will give all 3 the radio button the same name, and this is known as a radio group or a radio button group. It makes sure that the user can only select one radio button out of that group. So now that we have our checkboxes and radio button created, we can save the file and format it in the web browser. So that's what your form look like up to until this point. The last input field we want to create is the text area. The text area is similar to the input field, but it has allow much more text to be inputted and across the multiple lines. So let's take a look at an example. You will notice if I copy and paste this over and over again, the text areas allow for school bars, and we can also expand it and contract it. This makes it much more convenient for the user when it comes to inputting large amount of text. So before we create the text field, we will start with our label, which is additional comments, and in the column next to it, we will start with the input the text area. So to do that, we will create a text area tag and we will explain what the attributes mean in just a minute. The open text area tag does require a closing text area tag, so you can see it includes the name attribute just like all the other fields we created. It allows you to specify the width of the text area, which is represented by cool, the height specified by the number of rows. In this case, our text area will be 5 rows in height. Beyond 5 rows of text, the scroll bar will be enabled automatically. So let's save our file and take a look. So this is our text area here, and you can see that the scroll bar do activate. Now the last part of this form that we want to create is to submit and reset button. The submit button will submit the form data to our A script, and where in the file you have specified the section attributes of the any form. The reset button will empty the data and put into a field. So that's how it works. So let's go ahead and create two button, and we want to insert this in the second column on the next row and last. So the button is input. We have to specify that the type, which is a submit button. We will get a name and we'll just cut his submit and its value. So then we just close the input and we will do the same for the rest button. Just capitalize the first letter. So let's go ahead and save the file and take a look at the entire form. So that's the entire form. Where you see we have the two text input. Our select menus are working and we have checkboxes. The radio button, the text area. Let's test our reset button. So that's work. No, the submit button will not work because we have not created the send file. So that's the file that all this data will be transmitted to, and then the file instruct our web server on what to do with the data. In this lecture, we are going to explore working with the Iframes and the iframe, the HTML document embedded inside any other HTML document. The free DOMs are commonly used to insert content from any other server into a web page. For the purpose of this lesson, we want to build a web page that allows users to conduct searches on multiple search engines from a single page as shown in this example. Here we can search both ask.com and bing.com search engines, and the search result will load in their corresponding iframe. To begin, you need to open your text editor and create a basic HTML page shown here. Once complete, save your page in iframe.html anywhere on your computer. Next, we will need to add an iframe into the page. An iframe can be added with the iframe tag. We'll add this tag into the body of our HTML document. This is the open iframe tag, and I also insert the close iframe tag. The iframe tag has different attributes. We can apply the first attribute is the iframe source, and that's the source of the web page that will be displayed within this iframe. Next, we can specify the width of the iframe. We can use 100% in the width. So we can also specify height, and for that we use 400. Note that all the web browsers support the iframe. So next thing what we want to do, we just want to include a line of code that will be displayed. If the user browser does not support iframe, so in this case the user will not opt either use a different browser or update their existing browser. So that's our first iframe, and we are going to copy this block of code and paste it. This time just switch the iframe source attribute to the bing.com, which is the other search engine that we want to display. Now go ahead and save your file and preview this in your web browser. As you can see, both pages ask.com and bing.com are displayed in the single HTML document and contained within an iframe.
Like, subscribe and press the bell icon of Getsitement for future updates.